rolling here. I'm starting to sell my comic books. Right, I'm seeing what I have. I'm doing this week is catalog week. I got to actually see what I have. My storage locker got broken into in December, which
Oh no.
It oddly worked out. It oddly kind of worked out. I lost so far. There's one series I'm sad I don't have. It's 12 issues.
Oh
I'm
wow.
not.
Okay.
I'm not heartbroken, and the insurance covered what those books were probably worth anyway. Right. So
There you go.
it balanced out. Right. I was trying to get rid of them anyway. So in an odd way, it did me a favor. Right. There might be one or two things I'm looking when it's all said and done. I look at it and go, I'm sad I don't have those anymore. But it's not a big list. It's really not. The two boxes I was most concerned about were my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles box, which I still have,
Yeah.
and the box that contained the series Saga.
Oh.
I got them both. I don't care. So everything else is kind of. So and then I'm pleasantly surprised to discover that all the other stuff I really liked, as when I was reading throughout the years, is still there. So kind of win.
Yeah, it's kind of all right. I mean, and it's good when those things work out. I mean, they don't always, but this is yeah, we live interesting lives, and sometimes things just happen, and we think it's bad at the time, but it's not really.
I didn't actually look at this is going to sound strange. I didn't actually look at it as a bad thing, oddly enough. I couldn't check my comics. We couldn't see what I was stolen until now. But I looking at the boxes and looking at what's missing, I cataloged in my head kind of what's missing, right? I realized it's stuff I really, in general, just don't care about. Like, and I was saying I was going to get rid of them anyway. So it kind of did me a favor in one sense. So I mean, I've gone through the boxes, stuff I really, really, really want to keep. I have them in kind of like two boxes. I might go to a third box when I go through the last batch of them. But okay, so I'll have 4 long boxes of comics, right? 3.5, 4, and then the rest of them can go. Maybe get a few $1,000 for them. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah. No, not a bad deal at all. And the more you move around and the more life, just happens, you just find out that a lot of stuff is just stuff.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, it's just stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much it, right? I got rid of a lot of my books, not all of them. But like I said, I've learned at this point in my life, kind of come to the point where it's like, okay, what do I really enjoy? And there's that stuff, and then there's nothing else.
yeah,
That's pretty much where I'm at in life.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, that's a good place to be, because we fill whatever space that we have, right? If I have a really big office, I'm going to fill that really big office full of stuff,
Yes.
right? Whether I need it or not, I'm just going to fill the space because we as humans kind of tend to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy to have a little smaller office that actually has stuff that's meaningful. It makes me pick, like, what's really meaningful to me? What do I really need in here? What really matters?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was tough was I couldn't keep everything I've gotten over the years. Like I've met a lot of amazing people doing this podcast, so I couldn't keep everything. But at the same time, I just realized like some of the things I got, while I appreciate the sentiment, they just weren't for me. And it's better it's out there for somebody else to enjoy than me just keeping it for some obligation.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really an obligation to yourself. Like you've chosen it, you're the one holding on to it, and you go, at some point you go, why? Like, why am I holding on to that? And if you don't have a really great answer that doesn't bring you some kind of happiness, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. And like I said, I know with the next phase of my life, I'm going to be traveling everywhere. So, I mean, less is might be more for the short term. But in the long term, I'll settle down somewhere eventually, and then I'll go back to that storage locker, and I'll be like, okay, this is all the stuff I gave a shit about. So,
yeah,
and that stuff will come with me because it matters to me, and that's a much different place to be in than say, oh my god, I got to sort everything. I've already sorted everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a much better place to be. And if you're going to be traveling, I mean, I love. In principle, I love the idea of kind of that traveling van life type thing. in reality, it'd be very difficult for me to make work at this particular stage of my life.
Sure.
Right. But at the same time, like I can see other people that are doing it and see the benefits that come from it,
It's
in their situation.
the freedom is
You
the
know,
biggest advantage to it. Like, okay, again, I'm
freedom.
a freelancer. I can legitimately work anywhere. Like, legitimately.
Yeah.
There are a handful of exceptions to this, like when I'm filming something, I have to be out of a specific location. But I'm a dual citizen. I can go across both borders at will. I can literally travel anywhere I want to. Doesn't matter to me, right? And if I plan it right, I can take my time and enjoy myself getting there, have a good, do my job, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, there's cool, like I was just looking at a thing today. It's amazing. It's a laptop that uses AR glasses instead of monitors,
Yep.
right? You got 100-inch screen by putting on a pair of glasses, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you could literally be sitting in a Starbucks. Nobody else could see your screen. You can see it through AR glasses. And you can be dealing with a 100-inch screen doing the same work that anybody else doing anywhere else that has 4 monitors set up and all kinds of wild stuff in their office has set up. And you can be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Like,
technology now has just enabled us to, as a people, to move towards that more migratory pattern of like, where I can literally go anywhere that I want and still do my job for the most part. I mean, there are things geographically I need to be someplace for, right? But,
and
not always.
there's definitely some infrastructure things that can't move. But that all said, it's a very small list, honestly. Like, I was pleasantly surprised with looking at this, and I'm just like, okay, man. So all that's really left for me to do is get the van, get my license officially. I'm going to be going to the stateside to get one real fast because, as you well know, God bless America for some of the.
Oh, yeah. It's good stuff. Although, I mean, at least I live in a rural area where we have a little less regulation, of things. But
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's the beautiful. The beautiful thing about the United States. Some people hate it. I actually dig it. Is everyone kind of plays by their own rules down there. That's the best thing about the United States. Now, it can also be the worst thing about it sometimes too. But everybody's got like a say in how things go down there, and I think more so than anywhere else in the world. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, it comes with flaws. It's not perfect, but it's a better. It's an underratedly. It's probably the best part of your system, to be perfectly honest with you.
well, yeah, and here's the thing that I find: the more you look around the world, the more you look at everywhere and everything, right? There's always drawbacks. Like there's always negatives, right? There are negatives to the United States in our current system, and there are definitely some things that I would like to see be better and
Yeah.
fixed, right? Absolutely. But in another way, I'm like, the freedom, the exact freedom that you're talking about, like I can literally go live in a van starting tomorrow and no one can really stop me. You know what I mean? Like as long as I do reasonable, well, I do reasonable things. I license the vehicle. I have a license myself, that type of thing. And I don't park where it's illegal. People are like, oh, well, you can't park certain places. Yeah, probably not. That's okay. Just don't park there,
Yeah.
park somewhere else.
Well,
Um, you
I,
know,
I'm just looking
so
forward to this. I'm looking forward to the fact that this winter I'll actually be at a beach somewhere. Whether it's east or west, I'll just be at a beach. I'll be like, I'm not freezing my ass off in Calgary. This is fantastic.
yeah, oh, exactly. And you have the freedom to do that and then go, I'm tired of the beach. I want to go somewhere else.
Exactly. No,
And you have that option.
and that's the beautiful thing about it. Like, again, getting to where I want to go exactly with this is probably going to take some time, and eventually, like when I get to a little older, I'm going to be like you. I'm going to want a place kind of to call my own, right?
Yeah.
I know that, but that's why I'm doing this now. Because if I don't do this now, I'll never do it, and I hate the idea of regrets. I hate it. So, say I did it, even if I end up absolutely hating the pain, the whole process, I can at least say I tried.
Yeah. And I've known people that have, they've tried this. Like one friend of mine, her and her husband sold like all their stuff. They had some stuff in storage and they basically lived in an RV for a while. Like and part of it was they weren't sure where their kids were going to end up. They weren't sure about that type of thing. So they're like, we're just going to travel around in an RV. Well, they quickly found that two people working in 267 square feet provided challenges from time to time. You're stepping over each other. If you get mad at each other, you can't go to another room. There isn't another room. You're in an
No, it's
RV,
not.
right? So there's not a place to go, hey, go slam the door and be like, yeah, I can't. There's nothing. You know what I mean? So there are limitations, and so finally they transitioned back to renting a larger house, right? But in the meantime, they learned a lot about their relationship and each other and how to work on top of each other. And this time, when they rented a house, instead of a 2,000 square foot gargantuan thing, they rented a 900 square foot townhome and they're fine with it because they're like, we just tripled our space. That's great. Right.
And
So it changes your mentality about what's important and what you actually need. And I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of a big deal.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like in this life, like truthfully, you don't need much. A lot of people don't
No.
realize this. You truly don't need that much. But, but, um, the honest question then comes: what do you want? Because it's out
Yeah.
there for you. It's out there for you if you really want it. Are you willing to do the work to get it? Are you willing, like, what's valuable to you? I'm single. So, I mean, the thing about that is if I had a wife and kids right now, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I would be looking at the house, the car, the whole 9 yards because I'd be looking at, okay, what's best for my family,
Yeah.
right? That's a different mentality than where me it's like, well, why would I go through the absurdity of some of the things I'm seeing right now? It's absurd, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to settle for this. I'm working for myself for the most part right now. It's like, I mean, I have to constantly look for work. That's the drawback to my job, but that's really the only drawback to my job. You know what I mean?
Well, in some ways, that's like to be a freelancer, a successful freelancer, you also have to kind of love the hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
The hustle is part of the deal. And so I have met a number of people who they achieved their dream of being a full-time writer or a full-time freelancer, and then they went back to work.
Yeah,
And the reason was they discovered, I don't like the hustle. I
yeah,
don't like that having to strive for things. I don't like this going, well, this month was really good, but next month might not be, right? They don't like that. Well,
yeah,
okay, it's certainly not for everyone. That's part of the deal. It's certainly not for everyone. But at the same time, it is valuable to experience that and learn that and see if it is the right thing for you. Maybe you don't want to be an entrepreneur. That's cool, but how do you know until you try?
I
You
look
know?
at it like this has made me a better businessman all the way around
Hmm.
because I'm a better negotiator now. I make more money doing jobs than I ever did before because I just realized my time's valuable. And
Yeah.
I'm not, and it's got to be worth it for me to even think about doing it. I'm looking at some of the things that I'm seeing out there, and I look at a lot of things differently now. Like I saw a writing organization in town looking like, for example, a volunteer social media gig, right? And I'm like, I wouldn't do that for free. Like
Yeah.
it's too much. It's too much of an investment into something that's not me, right?
Yeah.
And me as an employee would never see it that way. But me as a
Yeah.
freelancer sees it exactly that way. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong to see it the other way, although, but I get paid more, folks, than,
Yeah.
because I look at it the other way.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. When you're volunteering and you're a freelancer, it's not only your time, but it's actually money. And people don't understand, like, when you're an employee, you kind of understand the time money thing, right? But at the end of 2 weeks, you get a paycheck for a certain amount of time you did. As a freelancer, you're like, if I don't put in the time, I don't get paid at all. You
Exactly.
know, if I decide
Exactly.
on Friday afternoon at 2 that I'm going to slack off and not do anything in the last 3 hours of the day, well, I don't get paid that last 3 hours.
Yeah.
I can't just sit at my desk and fake it till I make it, right? Until the weekend starts. I can't do that because it doesn't work that way for me.
No.
So your mentality about the exchange of time for money and how that all works changes because it has to. It has to. And so for me, it would be healthy for a lot of employees to go and experience that.
Oh,
Go and
absolutely.
experience that. Go and experience that thing of where you go, I quit Friday at 2:00, and you go, okay, that's 3 hours at $50 an hour. I just lost $150.
Yep.
And just think of that mentality, and it would change the way you think of your weekends and your evenings and your Saturday. You know what I mean? It just changes your mentality.
Yep. That isn't to say that you shouldn't take a day off every now and then. It's actually good
Oh
for
no.
everybody to take a day off. But yeah, it's one of those things where you gotta look at it like you look at your time so differently, and
Yeah.
because you realize you can't get it back. So if I'm investing in a person or a project, I want to know that the person with me is as committed.
Yeah. You want an ROI. And if you don't, at least you understand it. Like now when I volunteer my time, I really understand what I'm doing. So when I ask someone else to volunteer their time with an organization that I'm a part of, I also understand what I'm asking them for. And I can be more appreciative and also more understanding when they say, this is my limit, this is all I can do. I can say, that is actually perfectly okay for you to say that,
Yep.
you know?
Oh, absolutely. And going the other way too with like price points, right? I realize like this is I look at my time's the first thing I look at a price point. Is this worth my time to do? It's really the first
Yeah.
question, right? Some of my rates is just I I you have to you I have to how do I put this? I have to justify what I'm doing. Right? If I'm putting this much time in, I have to justify what I'm doing. If you're a friend, I might give you a bit of a discount. Might. But even then, only to a point because if it's below a certain threshold, I can't. I
Yeah.
just can't.
I'm just not gonna, and that's the thing, you get to a point where you don't have to take those low paying gigs anymore, right? You
Oh
just
yeah.
don't have to do it. You just say, hey, I'm just not gonna do that, you know?
Yeah.
I look at a certain threshold of money and I'm like, I need this much money to do that, and that's all. And a part of that is because also working as a creative, I know that sometimes the payback for that time that I invest is a long burn, right?
Yeah.
So I need those short burn things to make up for that, to make a difference for that. So,
Absolutely.
and I used to just, I would give people a little bit of extra time here, extra time there, and I just don't do it anymore. And it's not
Yep.
because I don't like those people. It's not because I don't care about them. It's because I also care about myself and taking care of myself. And you have to balance those two things. I tend to be too generous at times and go, yeah, yeah, I'm going to give you my time, but it almost inevitably that ends up biting me in the end. It ends up not working out.
Well, because it's weird how this works out. I came back to Calgary trying to reconnect with some people, and it didn't work out. Well, now my time's just about up, and I just realized it taught me a very big lesson. I have now 12 rules to success. I've gone to 12. Right. The 12th rule is right. Um, if people don't give you their time, leave them, move on. Don't wait for anybody. It's
No.
because you have to realize, and this if they're not urgent, if they're not urgent, then you shouldn't treat them with any kind of urgency yourself because they do not either they don't value your time or they don't value their time. Either way, you suffer. So you have to recognize. I have a client right now who I haven't heard from in about 2 weeks. He's vanished off the map. So I'm trying to see what's going on because I'm like, dude, job's done. What's going on?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right. And again, there's an urgency now to the point that if we do a bigger negotiation down the road, I'm asking for more money simply
Yeah.
because simply because I just realized like for whatever reason you are not committed or maybe something's going on. It's possible, but you would I would hope you give me the most time to tell me, hey, something's up. You don't have to tell me what it is. Just something's up. You let me know. I'm good. I find something else to do.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, and
Right.
I do this with everything, with editing and client and coaching clients and stuff like that too. It's like a part of my coaching is I have a very laid back style, sort of. I'm like, you come to me with what you need and I will help you. But I am, to a certain extent, I'm only going to chase you so much.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to remind you a few times and bug you the way you want. But if you just drop off the face of the earth because you decide you're not going to do it right now, okay, then fine. Because my time is valuable enough. I can't spend it chasing you. I have to spend it actually just helping you. And that chasing part is just not valuable for either one of us. And what it does is it shows me that you're not committed because you're not hungry. Otherwise, you turn around and come back for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're just not hungry for it. And to make it as a freelance writer and as a creative in any field, you have to have the hunger for it. It has to be something like, I can't stop writing. If I didn't make another dime at it the rest of my life, I would still keep doing it on the side somehow, because otherwise I would be a very insane, crazy person, right? So I've just had to, but instead I figured out how to make a living doing it, right? But I would still do it even if I couldn't make a living at it. And that has to be almost your mentality, is that I would keep doing this even if I never made another dime, because that drive is what's going to keep you going through the bad days, because there will be bad days. Like, people that think, oh, well, I'm not going to have bad days. Oh, well, yeah, you are.
Oh
You're
yeah,
going to
it's
have bad
inevitable.
days. You're going to
It's
have bad
inevitable.
days. It's never a zero sum game.
Oh,
So,
there's no such thing. Like, you have to recognize there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, right? I've had more ups this year than downs. I know that eventually that it's going to go the other way. Now I'm hoping when it goes the other way, I'm on the road, because at that point, again, worst case scenario, I can find something to do in the short term somewhere, right?
yeah,
Right. But it's one of those scenarios where, how do I put this? You gotta recognize like what people are doing, and you gotta ask yourself an honest question: Do you is the person giving you enough money to justify the time you're giving them?
yeah,
If the answer is no, then you start looking for better clients.
yeah. I just tell some people, like, if you can't afford that, you're just not my client. It's okay. There are people out there that are cheaper. There are people out there that'll do it for less. That's fine. You're welcome to hire them. The quality you get is going to be different. The person you're going to deal with is going to be different. But you're not going to come in and tell me this person down here does it that much cheaper, so should you. I'm like, no, I don't do that. I don't
Well,
do that.
it's not even that. Like, this is what I learned. I learned this from my very first client, actually. The amount of price point they put in is how invested the client usually is. It's one or the other. So I have to recognize the fact, like, I've realized that I think for everything I offer, I'm still too cheap. Because again, I am looking at, and the reason I look at that is it's the kind of clients I've gotten so far. And that's not saying it's been bad, but the good and the bad, like the good and the bad that comes with it, right? One thing I realize with really professional people, they don't fuck around. They just don't. They just go, this is
Yeah,
what I need done. How much is it going to cost me? Because they are investing in time, not money. They don't give a shit about money. They give a shit
yeah,
about time. They don't care. So those are the best clients. They also have the highest expectations for you. And as a freelancer, you have to be very honest. Are you ready for those expectations? I think that's a fair question.
oh
But
yeah, for sure.
that's a fair question. But your price points are, generally speaking, with a few exceptions. There are good people that just can't afford stuff, and then you can make the argument that they're just not ready yet, which, fair enough. Like, that's fair, right? But by and large, what the whole thing is about is your. I find that the price point, what all the price point is, the price point you have is a measure to the client you find, right? You're
Hmm.
looking for, and so I'm looking for quality of clients, not so much quantity, quality, which means my price point has to be at X and my offer has to be Y. And I have to be
Yeah,
good enough to be Z, right? These are just honest assessments going forward. How do I get that? Well, I'm confident enough to get what I'm confident enough to get. That's the very first important foremost there. But the second thing is I'm doing the work, right? I'm going out there, I'm putting myself out there. various ways, and I'm not afraid to see what happens. I know, like, I know sometimes you see what I'm doing, you're like, hey, that's pretty freaking cool. Sometimes you give me a thumbs up kind of thing, but that's it. I'm looking, I'm active, I'm driven, and I'm going. Eventually, I'm going to get the clients I'm looking for, and then at that point, I have to live up to their expectations. But they're paying me handsomely for that.
Right, exactly. And that's really important, is to go, okay, you have to do the work, right? You have to do the work, and you have to be capable of doing the work, and meeting those expectations. But at the same time, when you know that you are, and you know how valuable your time is, then you have to start raising your rates and charging for it. I had someone tell me that, like our writers contest for the Idaho Writers Guild, they said, well, it's a little bit expensive. And I said, no, it's not. It's designed to be expensive to enter. Why? Well, we have better prizes, but we also have better judges that give you better feedback. And when you win, it means something, right? It's not a meaningless contest. If I lowered it to a $10 entry fee, you're right, I would get 1,000 more entries in my contest. You betcha. And a lot of them would be crap, right? Because it's people that are not fully investing in their work. If somebody says, I'm not going to pay that much to enter a contest, well, then you don't care that much about it. It doesn't matter to you, you know?
And that's fair. And and you know what? That's honest. That's what you believe, that's fair. Right?
Yeah, because you have to go, like, first of all, like, what are we doing? Second of all, what's the cause here? And I'm like, okay, we're a nonprofit, right? We're not for profit that benefits writers. So everything you put into us, we're going to put back into the community, right? So you can say, well, this place over here is cheaper, and they get all these things, and they do all this. Okay, awesome. That's great.
Go there.
So what? Go there, like, because we're turning around investments to invest back into the community. We're turning investments to invest back in you. If you can't afford to invest in us, that's actually okay. Then you're the people we're here for.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, it's funny. I'll tell you a fun thing. Like my advertising, I didn't get a client with that for, let's see, about a year, right? And then I did something really funny. I raised my rates.
And you got more clients. Yep.
And I'm actually debating about raising. I'm debating about raising it some more. See if it continues, because what I've noticed is, again, there's a psychology to it, and it's one of those things where I just realized I should just ask for what I want, because why not? I know people like, for example, Natasha Ralph. She makes 6 figures as a freelancer. She's a freaking gangster, right? I mean, I don't know if you've ever met her, but she's a freaking gangster, right? And I say that in like the best possible way. And but again, the whole point is she has the confidence to go out there and say, this is what I'm worth. I'm going to go get it. And she does. And that is what every artist, not just writing, every artist should have that faith in themselves. And I think one of the biggest things I've noticed, I've done almost 1,000 episodes, Troy. You're 964 today. I mean, that's a lot of episodes. Do you know the amount of artists that I know that have that sense of self-worth?
Not very many.
No. And that's
not very many. This is why people are starved, and this is part of it too. Like, so I tell people, do this, okay? You go to Amazon. Just go to Amazon real quick and look at the bestsellers in any category. All right. First of all, you can immediately tell who's self-published by the price they're charging for their book.
Yeah.
A traditionally published Kindle book will go anywhere from $7.99 to $11.99, right? Self-published authors are selling the same book for $3.99, same length of book, and the rankings are lower. So what does that tell you about the perception of that price?
Yeah.
If the book is perceived to be good enough, people have no problem paying $7.99 to $11.99 for that book. They have zero issue doing it. The issue is not with the price of the book. The issue is with the confidence of the author and the quality that they're providing, right? Yeah. That's what it's about. That's what it's all about. And it's interesting to just look at that and go, this is not about price, because most of the time it's not about price. If I want a cheap burger, I can go to McDonald's, right? But I know that I'm not going to get the same burger I'm going to get at the brewery down the street that actually makes good hamburgers. right?
Yeah, and
Because I know the quality difference is going to be different. So I know that I'm getting what I paid for. We as people know that. So when we look at books and we go, I paid $2.99 for that book and it wasn't very good, but that was only $3. And we don't leave a review. We don't tell our friends about it. Or if we do, we tell them, oh, that book wasn't that good, right? Instead of saying, I spent $7.99 on that book and it was totally worth it because it was so good, right? So it's a difference of, if you are going to charge for quality, you do have to provide quality. So you have to step up your quality. But once you do step up your quality, don't be afraid to charge for it, for God's sakes. I mean, I just one artist that was like, I want to sell this. It was an original, not a print, for $500. And I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, make me a print. I'll pay you $150 for a print, but I'm not going to give you $500 for the original, because you should be selling that original for way more money than that. And it's stupid. If you sell it to me and you don't make any prints first, your only income from that painting is gone to me for $500. It's too little. You need to charge more and do more.
It's also poor business, because if the piece is striking, okay, yeah. So going to the next step, okay, this is why there are hardcovers and there are paperbacks. Look, hardcovers are for people that are like me. They're snobs that want like the best quality possible you can get in a book. I admit it, folks. I'm a hardcover snob. I don't argue that point. Now, I will pay a decent amount for a paperback, but there's got to be something special to it. For example, okay, I love Japanese light novels, but the thing is, it's not just a story. I get stories, illustrations. I get a very, very different experience than I would get in just a regular book. Now, if I can't afford the book, or I get to, let's say I get into someone like Kim Harrison. I like Kim Harrison's stuff; she's really good. But getting her early work in hardcover is next to impossible. Like you can't do it. So I'll get that whole series in paperback because again, I'm a snob and I like insert uniformity. But also, I got into the series too late. So I'm going to take the quality that I can find easiest at that point, right? Now, if I had a hardcover option, I would do it. She's good enough, but I don't, right? But those are the exceptions, not the rule.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, like, there's a lot of people, like I tell people, ebooks are really the new pulp paperback. We bought them for a quarter when we were kids. We read them and then we didn't read them again. That's not what we bought them for, right? And so I'm like, if you're buying certain things, there's nothing wrong with getting them on Kindle, reading them, and then it's done, right? It's fine. And honestly, as an author, you're better off selling a whole bunch of ebooks than you are having your hardbacks in stores, because hardbacks in stores, I don't make a dime on hardbacks in stores. I make, and this is what I tell people a lot. I'm like, if I sell a book in Barnes and Noble at a bookstore, I make maybe between 50 cents and $1 on that book, regardless of what they have it priced at, because of how the system works. If I sell an ebook and I price it appropriately, I could make $3 per ebook, and I don't do anything. I don't deliver anything. I don't do anything. So from that standpoint, we go commercially. That commercially, it kind of, the ebook revolution kind of makes sense. But we also have to understand that there are fans out there that want the paperbacks, that want the hardbacks, and you've got to offer them both. And even if you make less money on them, so what? You're still reaching your audience.
Well, okay. So here's the thing about a hardcover book. I've thought about this because I've seen this. I've been hanging out in town with the poetry societies here, and one of the things is they perform. They legitimately perform. And I was thinking about this, right? I still like CDs. I know I'm old, shut up. But I like CDs, right? I still like them, right? But I realized the reason why. The if I see a performance and the performance moves me, I want to remember the performance. If I read a story and it moves me, I want to have that experience with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the book, CD, the art print, all those things, they actually serve. I think in the long run, this is a long game firm. Those things are where your real fans will find you. Like when you go to a convention, right? Your paperbacks, your hardcovers are where people, because again, they're going to meet Troy Lambert, right? So so I met Troy Lambert. So now I got this really cool book. I got it autographed. I got, like, that's an experience. That's a real genuine experience. That's the one thing an ebook can't do, and that's fair. It can't do it. But when they meet you, or let's say there's a performance you watch from a band, you're gonna buy that T-shirt. You're gonna buy that album. You're gonna buy because you want to remember what you felt like when you saw them. That is super super valuable, and that is probably more than the money. That is the best reason. Again, you want to connect to people. That's what you really want to do, because if you connect to people, they will support you. That is just how it works. And right, so that's the deal. So when I don't think we're ever going to fully get into the, like, I'm looking at it now. I'm watching like musicians on YouTube now. They offer physical albums as kind of like bonuses and gifts and stuff like that now, because again, from a money standpoint, they're cheap to make, but they don't necessarily make a ton of money off those albums. But it's the experience you get watching, listening to them. That's the part that's what Spotify can't replace. That's what like those things are real and genuine, and that is what we're going for. So folks, this is why you want something physical, not because you're necessarily going to make the money. You're creating a memory, and you're creating something physical that will last forever, and that is where you'll find your fans.
This is why, like, when I go to conventions, I don't put books on sale. Like, I don't reduce the prices. And I learned that from a friend of mine who said, he goes, I stopped doing that as well when I realized what people are buying when they come to buy your book at a convention.
Yeah.
They're not buying a book, so they don't care if it's on sale. They're buying a souvenir that has your autograph on it. So it is valuable. So why are you putting it on sale to try to sell more of them? Don't. Let your true fans come and get those things from you because they want a souvenir that says, I met this guy, I saw this guy, I talked to this guy. And that's why the people that have the most following of fans and the biggest lines at those conventions are the people who take their time, like James A. Owen, fantasy writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He started a long time ago when he was, a nobody. He draws in each book. He draws in each book. He still draws in each book.
Yes, he does.
So the line for him is always incredibly long, not even necessarily because there's so many people waiting, but because it takes him so long to sign a book, right? But when you have a James A. Owen signed book, you have something that no one else has.
Well, it's not even it's not even that. See, I know of James, and let's just say that I'm very well aware how many he has done over the years. Right, I'm very well aware of it. It's not that. It's the fact that you get to spend time with him. Like, okay, so to draw one of his dragons, I've seen it. He can do it if he really wants to. He can do it in about 5 minutes. But when he's usually with a fan, he'll take about 10. Now think about what he's actually like. This is his genius, like totally like his genius is he will sit there, he will chat with you about anything for 10 minutes. Mostly it's going to be about books, probably within certain parameters, one or the other. But he's open. He's a very friendly guy. If you ever meet him, he's genuinely a friendly dude. He has a tendency to be very like you said, he's charming. Like he's charming. He's got a certain charisma to him. He stands out with how he presents himself. Like that. These are things that make James James. And people that have met him, have seen him, know this about him. So at the end of that 10 minutes, because I know this, he's done a lot of dragons in his books over the years. It's not even so much that you have a book that no one else has. Whenever you look at that book, you will remember that for 10 minutes, I got to talk to James A. Owen about anything, whether it's C.S. Lewis or J.R. Tolkien and the rest of the Inklings, because of this Here There Be Dragon series, or if you loved his drawing out the Dragons book because of how it inspired you, I got to talk to the man that inspired me.
Yeah.
Right? And that is so cool. And honestly, truthfully, right? It's the best thing he does. It is, but more than his writing, more than his art, it is the best thing he does.
Oh yeah, I've talked to him pretty extensively, and he actually in a couple really interesting stories about him. But he gave one of the best keynote speeches that I've ever heard at a conference. And so a couple of things that he does are just genius because they connect so well with his fans and the people around him. He's an amazing guy, but the principle is that you're doing something different to connect with people when they come up and actually talk to you. Like there
Yeah,
were times when, like my friend and I went to Phoenix Fan Fusion to sell our Star Trek books that you
yeah,
had us
yeah,
on and talked about, right? And there were times when we would end up spending 10, 15 minutes with someone to buy a book and a keychain, right? I'm not making a ton of money, but that person remembers me. That person, like we had a conversation about a thing that we very clearly had in common, which was Star Trek and a love of Star Trek, right? And that's why they came to the booth in the first place. So for them to buy a book is like, hey, that's great. That's actually a bonus because that's a bonus to me getting to connect with you, and for them it's a bonus of getting to connect with the author. And so there's a bonus on both sides. It's a mutual benefit, mutual exchange. It's just wonderful, right? And you just it doesn't it's fun when the sales become secondary. And because normally when you're online, the sales is like, I'm looking at numbers, right? I want to know, what are my sales numbers, right? But when I'm in person, it's about the experience that I'm having going to this convention, talking to people, just the experience that you're having, the experience that they're having. And it makes a huge difference. And James is a guy who just does it right. And there are a few people out there. There's a few people that really do it right and really connect with the fans. And those are those people that just sign things and send you on your way. And honestly, I'm like, I would just rather not have that. It
yeah.
doesn't matter. It makes no difference to me.
Well, okay, everybody wants to talk about the stupid number he did, but Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter, like, why does that sell so well? And it's not just because it's Brandon. Yes, it's because it's Brandon Sanderson, sure, but it's also the service he provided, right? Which is, you get a 1 year subscription service to me. You get these special edition books that only you are getting. So it's from a collector standpoint, that's awesome. But also, in between, I'm sending you randomly cool shit all the time.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for, right? And it's for me personally. Well, maybe not him personally because he got so damn big. He had to rent a freaking warehouse to store everything. But I mean, that was the idea behind it, right? It's just like,
Well, and he did not expect it to take off
oh
like he
no,
did.
no.
Like what's really interesting is I tell people, I go, look, the February before he did that, I sat down at a writers conference in a hallway with two guys, and with both those guys, we were talking about the way the cost of paper and printing things had impacted our careers, like all three of us, right? The other two people at that table in that conversation was Kevin J. Anderson and Brandon Sanderson.
Yep.
And then a few months later, he has a $15 million Kickstarter. And I'm like, dude. And he's like, well, I guess I'm not worried about the cost of printing that much anymore, except now I'm worried about the cost of warehouse labor. Right.
Yeah, no, no,
So it's a
yeah,
totally different thing. But the part of the thing with Brandon is, part of the beauty of that is Brandon will sit with you anywhere. If you're at a conference and you are a decent human being, he'll sit down and just talk to you because he's a nice guy, right? He makes a connection with his fans. And I don't love epic fantasy. I have read some of Brandon's stuff. I prefer his shorter stuff, his YA stuff, because I don't
I
like
know.
epic fantasy per
I, I,
se,
I,
but I
I, I,
love him as a person. As a person, dude is amazing.
I'm seriously, I've been trying to get him to come on the show forever. I want to play Magic with him on the show because I think he would. I think he'd
He
actually
would.
would.
He
Yeah,
probably would.
yeah. I'd be
Yeah.
like, you want to play Commander? And so let's be honest about power levels here, and let's just have some fun. And because I know he's a big Magic guy. I'm a decent. I have two Commander decks, so I'm a player myself. So let's have some fun, right? And I've been trying, but for that reason, because I know he's a good dude, right? He's a good guy, and he would take the time, and it would be fun. But again, real human beings connect to people. That's just how it works. And the thing about the art game, I'm doing so my last thing in Calgary before I go is When Words Collide here. I don't know if you've ever been to that event. I know you've heard of it, but I don't know if you've been there.
I haven't been to it. Yeah, no.
Well, this year's the last one under its current ownership. I don't know if there's going to be another one or not. I've heard rumblings here and there, but shrug, right? Whatever. It's my last one in my current capacity. So I'm doing a talk called Freelance Mindset. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is like self-worth. Because honestly, that I think the biggest thing about in 3 years of doing this, in 3 years of understanding of what that actually is, the biggest secret I've learned is that you have to believe in yourself. It doesn't really honestly. I realize something. No matter what's going on in the world, and we can talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. It doesn't matter. At least not in the sense of what are you trying to do with your life, whatever that is, whatever is going on. It doesn't matter. You got to keep going anyway. So what you got to do then is you have to go, okay, how can I make this work in the place and time I'm at?
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
And that's it. And that's all there is to it. And I can make it work. I will make it work. You do not have. I think honestly, I just had a little epiphany. We don't have the luxury to doubt ourselves for too long.
No, you don't.
No.
And the other thing is you have to adapt. So everybody they're all worried about AI, right? And I'm like, don't worry about AI. I'm like, to me, I've looked at it. Because I'm that type of person. Like, I'm going to examine it, find out what thing is going to happen, right? And I'm like, look, this is the thing: is AI is never going to replace human writers, but it is a tool, and you can use it. And you can use it to make your career easier, right? So this is like when the printing press came around, and everybody said, now everybody can have books. Okay, that turned out really badly. You know what I mean? It's like the ebook revolution. Everybody's like, the ebook revolution, paper books are going to be dead. And I'm like, guess what? Paper books are not dead. And here's why. The people that are using Kindles to read their books are my age. You know why? We can change the font because we have experienced eyes. So now we can see to read our book at night, right? Without a big tome hitting me in the face, right? I mean, honestly, that's what it's about. Like, I have certain books that I have physical book and I have on Kindle. Why do I have it on Kindle? Because I can read it at night when I'm in bed and I don't have to carry the big book and it's not hitting me in the face, and I can change the font and see it without my glasses, right? So like, it's stupid because everybody said this is going to change this. Everybody's like, AI is going to change this. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's going to change it, sure, but it's not going to eliminate human writers. In fact, it's going to make human writing even more valuable. So, that's my opinion. But anyway.
Well, okay. So I've looked at AI stuff myself. So we also haven't hit the. I quit AI. Okay, first off, AI has been in writing for years already. It's been a big tool. Okay, for freelance writing, folks. Man, down the wrong pipe. SEO and AI have been together like glue for about 3 or 4 years. Has been that way, will be that way for the foreseeable future, because they made AI initially to keep up with the Google algorithms, because Google is the basis of all art. So AI has already been in writing for a long time. Second point, right now, see, we have a precedent to go by with how AI is going to go. Now, my true belief is AI is going to go the way of Napster. Right? Yeah. And the reason I say that is because this is what I think it's going to be legally ruled. Anything made with AI will probably be put into the court of public domain. Probably, because no human created it, right? Harder to prove writing than, say, art or music, but you can still do it. You can still figure it out. People have seen what AI writing looks like. It's pretty terrible right now, right? Yeah. So it's pretty terrible right now. So that's what now AI will get better with writing. I like all these tools eventually. That's not what we're saying. But legally speaking, what's going to happen, I think, is AI is going to be public domain. And then all this AI stuff we've seen in the last couple of years, there'll be an implosion and then there'll be an explosion, right? Because then once we have the legal boundaries of what can and cannot be done, that's when the real planes and exploration will truly begin. I haven't touched AI from a creative standpoint because I already know that anything I make right now, I can't make a dime off it. Because if I do, in about a year or two, I might pay for it big time. But a year or two from now, maybe not. Maybe I can actually now use it. What I think AI is going to honestly do, and this is what I think, it's going to make, you're going to have to adapt to it. There's going to be a period of adaptation to it. I think there's certain jobs, certain writing gigs that AI can replace. I don't think like certain like press releases kind of stuff, certain I can see AI because again it's generic. So that's the generic boring ass writing that needs to be done that no one really wants to do, right?
Yeah.
Right. I can see that go away, but okay, ad copy is still going to be human, right? Ad copy is still going to be human. Right? Prose. It's you might be able to make the tropest romance novel ever with AI, but allegory. You might. But the thing is,
Maybe.
but I think allegory. Allegory is right now way beyond the scope of what an AI can understand, and there's also context. Like it's not going to like you might be able to create the most generic, blandest piece of shit on the planet with AI. I don't know if that'll ever change, but I think what you can do and what you will do. I had this talk with James Nettles about this, and he said it's like he uses AI to go through different scenarios. If you try to understand your story structure, and this is where I think writers are going to benefit from AI, if there's holes in your story structure and AI can find them, that's handy. That's handy because right, that's handy, and I think that's good. I think if you're an artist, it's another layer. It's like much like Photoshop with layers and masks. It's another layer you can use to add. Maybe you want to do something very different with the background. Maybe you don't want it right. Yeah, I can do that. Music. Maybe it adds another. Although I don't know if we need another synthesis in music at this point in life, right? I could see again. You can see, but the point is, I don't think AI will replace the mundane things in all of those fields. I do see that, but in terms of art, you're not going to be like again human beings make art. That's just how it works. Machines now, if a machine becomes conscious enough that it can create its own original thing, well then we got bigger issues than
We've got bigger issues at that point. I mean, I think
yeah.
I've used AI to create a privacy policy for a web page.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great because that requires no imagination. All it is a series of legal words, one after the other, that an AI can easily put together. I've used an AI for keyword research, right, for SEO. It's a fantastic tool for keyword research, right? But it is not. Still, there has to be a human moment when I look at that list of keywords and I say, this one does not fit. The AI may think it does, but if I run Google ads to that keyword, is that going to benefit my business? Nope. And I need to know that in order to run the AI list. So I still need that human intervention. When it comes to writing, like I've seen some of the AI fiction writing that comes out of some of the tools that are out there. And the truth is, without human input, it's garbage. Right? It's garbage. It's not even a good tropey novel. A character will just disappear halfway through the story. No explanation, no nothing. The AI just didn't register that that person should move forward, right? And so it creates this thing that it's basically just garbage. So yeah, we're going to have an adjustment period where KU and other places get bombarded with AI generated fiction that's horrible. Yep, we are. And what's going to happen? Well, just like crap fiction in other areas, it'll just get sorted out. Nobody's going to buy it. It's not going to work.
Or like I said, or once it's legal, I think the legal precedent is going to go is it's all public domain. If that's the case, guess what?
All those writers are screwed, basically.
Yeah. It's basically going to be because again, if a machine creates it, it's harder to prove with words. I think writing might be the last one to fully get because again, with paintings, with music, with movies, that's easy. You can see the pieces being cut from all these other sources, right? And I could see like an equivalent of a Spotify service, right? If the AI uses your art and you register it in this database, right? You get paid for it. I could see something like that. Adobe's already started doing that.
Yeah,
So
with Firefly.
yeah. So this is how I see that going. Like I think writing might be the last, because again it's hard. How do you get, like, with words? It's really hard to parse. Hey John, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, the AI detection tools are really crappy actually
Yeah,
right now. But that's the thing is that's kind of on par with AI right now.
yeah,
Like in other
exactly.
words, because the AI writing is crappy, well, of course, then the detection of AI writing is going to be crappy. And it's just at the point where there are certain things that AI is going to do well. That's fine. But part of my point is just everybody has fear of something new. And I'm like,
Oh, always.
I was just talking to a gal today, and I'm like, look, I've been writing full time since 2009, and it is not even the same industry that it was in 2009. It's not even close,
It,
right?
it,
It's
it,
not
it,
even close.
it's completely decentralized now. Like
Yeah.
that's the way I would describe it. Like I I'm not about. I again, maybe I go for a big five deal someday, maybe. But I know what I'm getting into when I do a big five deal at this point. It's not what a lot of people think it is, right?
Yeah,
It,
no,
it
it's not.
isn't. It isn't. It isn't. And if I'm doing it because I'm from a business standpoint. It makes sense. That's it. There's no other reason, right? If I'm doing a book, okay, so right now, a book I'm planning to release on Kickstarter, I started releasing raw chapters on my Patreon. Why? Because right now I'm a small Patreon. I'm trying to figure out what content to put on there that's going to work, it's going to sit. But the other part of it is too, it's a cool investment for people that want to follow what I do, right? You can see my progress as I go. This is not the final draft of the book, not even close. This is just me writing as I go, right? So it's a different experience than like a polished final product, right? But maybe I do something really cool with the patrons. Maybe because they've invested so much money. Maybe when I make these books eventually, I send them copies of it as a bonus,
Yeah.
as a thank you, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
right, and maybe because I'm on the road, I'll deliver it. I'll deliver it by hand because I'm in the area, right?
Yeah.
So, right, that's the whole thing, right? But again, I'm looking at it like that is a viable business model today. That would not have been a viable business model 10 years ago, right?
Well, yeah. More and more authors are selling books direct on their websites,
Yep.
right? And now, right now, that works, right? And it gives you an alternative source of income where you actually make more money.
Yep.
And because people have gained a lot of trust in the internet, they will go to your site. And as long as you have a decent checkout process, they will trust that you're actually going to deliver what you promised you're going to deliver to them, right? And so, but 10 years ago, people were still trying to trust Amazon, right? So there's a disconnect there. So now that has changed dramatically to where I can offer my books everywhere, but I can say the cheapest place you can buy them is on my website. And actually, by you buying them on my website, I actually make more money,
Yeah.
right? And so I
It,
sell direct, right? And I go wider than wide. I can go international. I can do anything that I want to do, right? Just amazing, amazing ability to do things, right? That in 2009, no way. There
yeah,
was no
absolutely.
way to do it. There was literally no infrastructure to do it. Now we have all of that infrastructure and we can actually manage to do it.
Well, and the thing is, now direct. Now, folks, I will say this. I've said this with other authors in the past. Direct is probably the most profitable way an author can make money today.
Yeah.
However, you must have your shit together.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, you must.
I'm moving towards that model later this year, but I tell people it is going to take me some time to move to that model. I have certain pieces in place, but I need to test everything every step along the way because I don't want to become a an ebook wholesaler who's answering customer service
No.
emails
Now,
every day, you
you're
know?
accepting.
So you got to get your shit together. You got to know what you're doing.
Now, and also this way too, when you're moving slowly, shit's gonna happen, but you're only answering a few phone calls, not everybody, right? And that's fair. Like you knew that going in, you knew that going in. But no, that's the way to do it. You don't want at this particular point in the ball game, you don't want like I don't hate Amazon. I don't. But the thing is, we've almost gone full circle. When the internet started, everybody was about building their own audiences, Well,
Yeah.
thanks to, I think, the pandemic of all things, we see how trustworthy social media is. I don't care what platform you're looking at. Everybody's like, you know what? I kind of want to build my own audience again, just in case there's something like this happens again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In case TikTok does get banned, even though you can't enforce it, even though, you know what I mean? All these other things that people are relying on. I'm like, I tell people often the only two things you own as an author for marketing tools is your email address, is your email list, and your website. That's it. Everything else is on somebody else's platform and can be taken away at any moment, right?
That's it.
They could go bankrupt and you could be taken away at any moment. So I'm like, there's only a few things that are actually yours, right? And you might as well make money from those things. Now, I mean, it used to be Amazon was, Amazon was the place, right? But if you're looking at international sales, Amazon is not the place,
No.
right? The book market internationally is actually bigger than it is in the United States now. And
Yes.
there are bigger markets in India and in China and places like that than there are in the United States, right? And if you're not reaching those markets because you're putting all in on Amazon, you're going to miss out on some potential sales that you might not even know are out there. Is it more challenging to go wide? Well, yeah, it
Yep.
is. There's more work to do, but
Yep.
there's also more profit there. So you have to decide what you're willing to trade for. But again, this is something that, we look at 10 years ago, this wouldn't have worked. Now it works. 10 years from now, will this work the exact same way? I'm going to bet that probably not. Having experienced the last 10 years, I'm imagining the next 10 years are going to be big changes as well.
Sure. No, but I would look at it, but I look at it like this. This is how I see it, right? Is some things, I find it's not the tools, but the fundamentals that don't change, right?
Yeah, fundamentals do not change.
Yeah, the fundamentals don't change. So, I mean, figure out where the fundamentals are at any point, and you'll be fine. You may not always be the sexy thing, but that right, and that's the thing. But you'll always be there, right? And that's the real secret.
Yeah, SEO. Think about SEO and when voice search came along, and everybody was like, "Oh, voice search is going to be the totally new thing. Voice search is going to totally replace web search." Didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. So everybody's out there panicking and optimizing for voice search, and it doesn't matter now. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, you should have optimized for mobile. You know what I mean? Like, you should have been thinking in a different direction than where the crowd was going. And I think often, as business people, as freelancers, as authors, as everybody kind of, we panic about something that's new and think that this is going to be the thing that is just going to upend my life and completely change the world. And the answer is probably not.
There
Probably
are
not.
there are usually in history, I can think of three very seismic points in history: the printing press. And I go modern history, folks, because let's be honest, if we go way back, we theorize some things, but we don't actually know, right?
Yeah, fire.
Yeah, fire,
Things like that.
Yeah, so there's certain points we just can't. But anyway, printing press, oil. Okay, oil. The internet in the 90s. All three of those things changed everything. Printing press, everybody had access to read and knowledge, which ironically, the internet is a similar concept, but faster, right? And oil was about production, and also the fact that it eliminated slavery in the United States. The Civil War, ironically enough, was as much about the technological changes of the time than it was about slavery. Because slavery was the way it used to be done, and oil was going to lead the way to the Industrial Revolution. So that is a very seismic shift in how we've been in the world for the last 100 years or so, right?
Yeah.
So now what's happening is, right, we're going to the next level, which is, okay, now I'm not sure, again, yay or nay to the artificial intelligence being in the world. Whether it is or isn't doesn't really matter. Pandora's box is open. The toothpaste is out of the bottle. It's there, and it's going to. And will it change things? Absolutely. But will it? But will it kill everything? Probably not, right? Because very few things have. But say it does. Say it actually does kill absolutely everything. Troy, I'm going fishing. At that point,
Yeah.
that's it.
I mean, this is the thing. Okay. So let's say that somehow AI becomes more powerful and smarter than it currently is and takes over a whole bunch of different jobs. Well, guess what people who are going to survive are going to do? Well, they're going to go get a different job, right? Like there's certain things that like AI is not going to do. Not going to go pick crops in the field. Now, eventually you might have a robot that's doing that and something, but there's a transition there and part of that still requires human supervision, right? We just have not moved far enough that we're going to move to 100% automated society. It's
And
just we're not there.
I don't know if you'd ever want to get there, to be honest with you. Like there's a point. There's a point. Like what? Why bother? Like, and I say this in the sense of people need purpose, and I say this like as an honest assessment. I think automating some of the more difficult tasks has always been smart, but automating everything has I don't think is a good. I don't think it's healthy, right? And
No.
that's just me. It's not healthy for anybody. I think it's in a world in which all of us have minds, abilities, and purpose. We need to seek more purpose, right? More than
Yes.
progress, we need to seek more purpose, and that's my opinion on it. Um, but to get there and to do that, that doesn't mean machines can't help, right? Right. And but also, I think with the way technology works, here's a really neat thing, and I think I could see this happening in the next, you know, 20 years, is we might see instead of like I theorize like with decentralization and we're going to be all in smaller communities. I like our communities, our countries will be smaller. Well, in that case, everybody will have a say in what is in their lives. We are going to have the ability to say, okay, you got a machine that can make all this food, right? Do we want that? And
Yeah.
no, and we'll have alternatives. We have a machine that can automate this mine. Do we want that? Maybe yes, maybe no. Like again, these are things that I think it's going to become eventually um, decentralized completely. In which case, it'll be the communities you live in that are going to make the decisions on what they believe is valuable versus what isn't valuable. And that
Right.
will be an interesting world. And that, ideally, quote unquote, ideally, right, is I think the world we're going to head into a world with potentially more freedom eventually, not
Yeah.
less, more. I think the real question I think going and how we get there
Yeah.
is will we going back to like that whole worth question, are we going to have enough confidence in ourselves to say, hey, this is what we want, instead of letting
Yeah.
someone else make those decisions for us? That I think is the real question.
Well, and it's also so think about this. Human endeavors in that case will be more valuable. So
Mhm.
think about like the what is that? The flippy restaurant, the flippy robot that's like turning burgers and stuff like that, and you can go into McDonald's and order at a kiosk, and you barely even need any people there, right? But you're not going to do that to a Michelin five-star restaurant, right?
Oh,
I want a maitre d'. I want a sommelier that's going to tell me what wine I should have with this dinner, and I want a real chef in the kitchen cooking that steak, right? So that human endeavor becomes even more valuable when you've got machines doing this other menial type, mediocre type things. And we can make a decision about what is it that I want? Do I want fast and convenient? I don't always want fast and convenient. If that was the case, as soon as convenience stores and fast food restaurants came along, all the Michelin five-star restaurants would have went out of business. If all people were looking for was cheap and fast food. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for those human experiences that we have, right? And so there's just no way that people, at least in the form that people are at right now, are going to allow automation and AI and stuff to take over everything, because we want that connection. We want that experience. And I can't get that from an AI. AI is not going to have a book signing at the local Barnes and Noble. AI is not going to it's not going to barbecue for me in the backyard. If it does, it's going to lack that human quality. Like, every time I make this, it's a little bit different because I play with the spices, or I play with this, or whatever the case may be. So I think there's just, honestly, just like everything else, I think there's just this panic that people have with, like, oh, it's something new and everything's going to be bad and the world's going to end. And I'm with you. I think that things are going to decentralize. I think that my kids, and I've always said to my kids from the time they were very young, you're probably going to see a revolution in your lifetime. The key is whether it's a bloodless revolution or whether it's a bloody revolution. And you guys are going to largely decide that. But there's going to be some kind of an economic revolution, because the way things are working right now, they don't work, right? They don't work long term. They're not sustainable.
Here's what it comes down to. This is so. I had this spot. I had DJ Butler on the show not too long ago. And I asked myself a legitimate question: why does the United States only have two parties? And then I had an epiphany to that. And this was the epiphany. I realized something. No matter what your politics are, honestly, that's your business. I don't really care. But let's say I'm a conservative and you're a liberal, right? Right. Let's just say that. Now, here's the thing. As a conservative, right, there are things that the liberals offer that are better than what I offer, and I can openly acknowledge that. And vice versa, by the way, it goes both ways.
Yeah, it goes both ways. Absolutely.
Right. So the real question then is, okay, now in a sane world, you and I'd be like, okay, we don't agree about these things, right? But we agree about these things. So let's start here. See how far this can go. And when we start hitting disagreements, all right, let's hash it out. Let's actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, with two parties, right, it's really easy to put people on extremes, right? It's really easy to do it. And what I think again, this is where I'm a little less optimistic in this sense. I do think we get to decentralization. I do think what's going on right now is an attempt to centralize everything. I think that's the real challenge. That's the real challenge today. There again, people in power want to stay in power. Technology is making everybody, again, me and you are talking across whatever. I can see you in person sometimes. It occurred to me, I don't need a big government anymore. I need a small one, right? That's what we need. We need a small one. We don't need a big one, right? And the small one is just for things like infrastructure, like just basic services. That's all a government should be at this point in time. But because we're so busy going, this is right or this is right, and there's no compromise, we're fighting each other. When what we should be doing is going, okay, look, we don't got to agree. Who cares? Honestly, who cares that we do agree or disagree? Let's figure out. We had, up until I'd say probably right before the pandemic, we had a sense of a consensus, right? We don't have that today, and I think that's the real problem. That's the real problem. You get a consensus back of some kind. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It won't be perfect, but if you have a consensus, people will get along, right? And no matter how big or how small, people will just get along. So that's what. Now the solution to that is you and I and other people would just have a talk. Where do we agree? Where do we disagree? And not go, well, you're wrong. Go, why? Why do you see it this way? And see if we can come up with a compromise that works. Because again, even the things we agree with. For example, I'm sure you and I will come to terms with education, that how important that is. But maybe what we should be looking at is, okay, why are we doing these student loans with our kids? Why are we crippling them before they can even get started? That makes zero fucking sense, right? Why are we doing that? All right. That's something I think both of us could agree on that needs to be fixed. Why are we doing this? Why are we letting this happen to our kids? Why are we letting, for example, your healthcare? Okay, the one worst thing about your system is your healthcare system. It is
Oh
one of
yeah,
the
it's
most,
terrible.
yeah, it's criminal. It's I would go so far as to say it's the most criminal thing I've ever seen. Why the fuck does it work this way? Right? It doesn't have to. It's already been proven by other countries in the world. Right? These are things we can agree on. Now maybe a little more nuanced, again, more nuanced stuff, right? Um, okay, I don't want to do anything really controversial. Let's think of something. Okay, semi-controversial. Guns, right? Semi-controversial,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Right to bear. Everybody agrees. I think everybody in the states will concede, especially after the last few years, the merits of being armed. But who the fuck wants this many AR rifles out in the air? No one needs that, right?
Well,
And
and
again,
so
these are
yeah.
again. That's a nuanced argument. That's a nuance, right? How far does that go, right?
Right. And well, and here's the thing, like certain things, like even education and gun control and stuff like that are regional in nature,
Yeah,
right? Like I live in rural Idaho. My reasons for having a gun are way different than someone in downtown Chicago,
absolutely.
right? Those are two completely different areas of the country with two completely different reasons for having weapons in your house, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I say, okay, there needs to be some kind of control and some kind of licensing that's somewhat universal, but there also needs to be a certain amount of leeway to say where you live actually does make a difference in the way that you look at gun control, the way you look at education, because I'm like in rural Idaho, the education systems have always suffered because the tax dollars are centralized in
Mhm.
well-populated areas. How do we get those tax dollars spread around the country and spread around the state, right, to make for a better education system? Now, if I sit down with people, most people will agree that we should do that and improve education in the rural areas. And then what we disagree with is how we should get from where we are now to there,
Yeah,
right? But even the biggest political enemies in the United States in the 80s would fight with each other, but at the end of the day, they would go have a drink together and they would talk about this word called compromise, which for
yeah,
some reason has become a dirty word. And I'm like, why is compromise a dirty word? Because compromise is how things happen. You compromise in your relationships when you're in a relationship with someone, because oddly enough, my wife and I don't think exactly alike.
who
We
do?
have different thoughts on things. And as a one friend of mine used to say, if two people are exactly alike, one of them is unnecessary, right? So if we think exactly alike about things, there's something wrong, right? So we don't think exactly alike about things, but we come to consensus in the middle that works and we make compromises, right? Otherwise, our relationship doesn't work. So it's the same way with national politics, world politics, or working in a workplace, right? Is that there's a certain amount of compromise that you do. There's times when I say, yes, this is the principle that I would go by, but I'm going to back off of that and compromise because it's not compromising one of my core principles and it's something that's reasonable that I can do to accomplish what I've set out to accomplish, right?
And
You
the other
can't
way,
accomplish anything without compromise. The reason we have a frozen government right now is because nobody will give on either side.
yeah,
And the two-party system is absolutely terrible. I think of like Norway, where they have 12 parties, right?
yep.
And there's 12 people running for president. I still look at the United States last election. I'm like, I don't care what your politics are, but two white guys that are nearing 80 years old is the best we got in this country.
Well,
Come on, that's not true. You know?
you guys have a grandpa problem. You also, I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, I'm like essentially the same guy for 40 years. But again, that's a bigger conversation for another day. But oh man, no, it's a bigger conversation for another day. But what I will say is, but the whole point I'm getting at, folks, is this is about consensus. Like having a
Yeah,
consensus gives a basis for everybody to work and compromise with, and
yeah,
that is my biggest fear. Now we need that's something that the American people as a whole, I mean, even the Canadian people as a whole, we all need to talk about that at some level because again, there is a divide, and the only people that this divide benefits are the people already in power. right?
Yep.
They can do what they do unimpeded as long as we are busy fighting each other over stupid shit that doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right?
They used to call it wagging the dog. And what it
Yeah,
is I present to you this story and I make you feel like this is the most important thing. This is really, really important, right? And I want you to feel that thing, right? And you're so focused on that this other problem in the world that's actually much, much bigger, you're completely ignoring that because you're focused on this one little thing. And I see this all the time with both sides of the aisle. And I tell people I'm independent. I kind of fall in the middle, which is a really unpopular place to be
that's where
because I'm not accepted by the extremes of either side. And the reason is the extremes of either side don't make sense. And I'm like, I want to come back to a logical place that makes sense.
yeah,
But you're right about the consensus of something that's just like, let's talk about basic human decency and then let's go from there.
yeah,
Let's say I shouldn't kill people. I can agree with that. You shouldn't kill people. You shouldn't steal from your neighbors. I can agree with that. Shouldn't steal from your neighbors. You know what I mean? Like there are certain things we can easily agree on, and if we start with those things, we can build out from there and build a society that's decent.
yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's what we're going to like. What we're seeing is the breakdown. But here's the thing, and this is where we talk about the revolution. Part of this is because of all the changes that have happened in the last few years, right? When the new so a biblical verse, with the new to come, the old must pass. We are experiencing in our lifetime this change. Now, where we go from here, folks, is entirely up to us. Because no matter
Yeah.
whatever a person of power will say to you, I don't care what side on the fence you're on, it's up to us whether to agree or disagree, right? And one of the things that I mean I got to watch firsthand through the pandemic is people will try to bully you, people will try to coerce you, right? Right, especially people that are uncomfortable in the situation, right? Stick true to your guns because honest to God, this is the only way good things will come out of anything. Because the people that fold
Yep.
the fastest are the people that are the most dangerous. That's
For
my
sure.
opinion.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I mean, this is just, we're in a situation where people that are in power continue to be in power in ways that they shouldn't be, and it was never intended. Our type of government was never intended to operate this way. And we need to go away from it and go back towards something that operates in a more
Well,
community minded way.
it's just time
Yeah.
for something. It's just time, honestly, for something different, and that's fine. Like honestly, that's great. Now, what is that going to look like? That is the real question, folks.
Yeah.
Right? That is
That,
yeah, that's the real
that's the
question.
big question. And it really is in a large part. I mean, it's really in question at this point. It's a really large question at this point because
And
we don't know what
and
that's going to look like, and it's up to people that are much younger than I am, because by the time that changes, you know, I will probably be at least retired or kind of out of the picture. You know what I mean? But to a certain extent. So it's to me, it's for me to say to a younger generation, this is your time to grab the reins. This is your time. This is your country. This is your world, and you can make it into what you want it to be. But you have to take action. Otherwise, you're going to see another old white guy
yep.
leading the country again 4 years from now, and nothing is really going to change.
Except people will be poorer, people will be more desperate,
Yep.
and it will collapse at some point. And it may not be able to be very quiet. No one will say anything, but you'll know. It's just the
Yeah.
things that work just don't work no more, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I would end this on a slightly more optimistic note than what we did where we just went. Um, the only thing I will push back on you a little bit is this. I think it behooves you, and to a lesser extent me. We've seen a lot of bullshit in our lifetime, and I think one of the biggest things is we have to be honest about. This is just something I just realized. You have to. We have been we have been inundated with so many different things in our lives. The vast majority of it is complete and utter garbage, right? I think, but the advantage of going through that is you've seen the circle before. And I think it
Yep.
behooves us to be like that voice of, this is what we did. This is why it fucked up. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It is a certain amount of like, you know, teaching our children to learn from history. And this is the most difficult thing in the world because people do not learn from history. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And those who do learn from history are doomed to watch everyone else repeat it. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's like, it's a really tough thing. But at the same time, I do feel like it's our responsibility to educate. It's also our responsibility to adapt and be relevant, continue to be relevant. And
That's
this is my thing. It's like people, I know people my age and older who are just basically saying, all this new stuff, I'm just not dealing with it. And I'm like,
have to.
okay, okay, but you are going to deal with it. Whether you want to deal with it or not, whether you deal with it directly or not, you're going to deal with it, right? Because that's the way life works. And so for me, I feel like on the optimistic side of things, I feel like there really is the winds of change are actually not necessarily a bad thing.
Oh, there
Like
change.
AI is not a bad thing at all. AI is a good thing. There are a lot of people who are looking at it and being afraid and being fearful and thinking it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. Change in government, change in the United States and the way things work here is not a bad thing. There is a certain amount of fear there because it's different, right? Well, that's okay. There's always been fear when things change and things are different. So, yeah, things are going to change, things are going to be different. But optimistically, humanity, in general, and humanity as a whole, tends to always come out with at least some good. Now, there are those people that are still going to be power grab, terrible people. All right, but those people are always going to exist. But there's always something we can do about it and something we can change, and we can do that.
So I'll say this, folks, change is life. It's not whether it's good or bad, change is life. Now, when I get to about 80 years old, I'm going to change a lot slower than I do now, right? And I
Yeah,
probably will give far less fucks about life than I do now. It's kind of frightening, actually, now I think about that. But
uh,
but
yeah, in some ways.
yeah, yeah, in some ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, change is the constant. And the thing is, if you really want, if you have to embrace change. And one of the best quotes I've ever heard is, "At any moment, you have to give up who you are for who you want to become." Right?
Yep.
For the world we want, we have to let go. Again, for the new to come, the old must pass. It's just the way it is. The old must go. So, folks, whatever it is, this is my thing. Whatever it is that's holding you back from the thing you want, let it go. Just let it
Yeah.
go. Right? Right? Let it go, and that new thing will be there waiting for you. But you must be ready. And the things that we hold on to that comfort us are maybe the things we need to let go the most.
Yep.
And then the things that we are terrified to do are probably the things we should, because that is the nature of change. The things we want are usually behind the door of fear. You must be willing to walk through them.
Yep. Absolutely.
I
For
think that's a good
sure.
way. That's a good spot to wrap
That
this
is a
up.
that is a good way to end it because here's the thing, and we're talking about change and change being good, is you're about to change a lot of things. You're
Mm-hmm.
about to change the format and the way you're doing this show. You're about to change your life and go doing some traveling and stuff like that. And that is going to result in good things for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I know that is because I've seen you as a person. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen you grow and change. I've seen you adapt. I've seen you try new things. And I know that that's going to turn out absolutely well for you. So it's a good. I know you have probably another 36 episodes before you get to a thousand and change
The
ish.
36 to 40-ish episodes, give or take, somewhere like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. But whatever that looks like, when that change happens, it's going to be for a good thing because whatever the next chapter is, it's going to be even better than this one.
I think so. I will say this though: it has been an absolute pleasure to meet you like this. But I look forward to the day I can actually meet you in person. And we do this
Yes,
again. We do this again, but this time somewhere fun. Not just
we'll
not
sit
just like
across the table and
yeah,
do something fun. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Well, Troy, thank you for everything. But before we go, you probably
Yeah.
should promote something of yours. So what do you want to promote?
Oh shoot. I'll just promote my latest in the Max Boucher series. I've actually had some really cool stuff happening with my Capital City Murders series, and that series is totally going to change. So if you've read any part of that series, you should read the last book. the most recent book, because that's going to tell you exactly where the series is going next, but no spoilers. But my Max Boucher series is doing amazing. I've won a couple awards this year. And it's just been really, really fun. And I can't wait for the next chapter in that too. It's going to be even more delightful. So, go check out my books. You can find me on Amazon. I tell people the easiest way to find me is Google me. If I don't come up when you Google me, your internet is down. Contact your provider, get that resolved. And when you Google me again, my face will be all over the place. So.
All right. So then I'll just do it like this then, folks. I'll end it this way. So you want to know what the future is going to look like for my show? You can actually do that right now. I've already started recording episodes, and I did just to test out what the new show is going to look like in the post. So you can, for $5 a month, you can watch these shows in advance, well before anybody else can do it. There's also a novel going up there. There's art up there. I do all kinds of cool things. So if you want to support my show, my podcast, my travels, the best way to do it is on my patreon.com. Patreon.com/JustJoshuPodcast. And that, folks, is that. I'm going to now, Marcus Wade is joining me for a very short but very fun drink and draw. And that is that, folks. Stay inspired out there, as I'm going to be on recording longer, as my computer just decided to pop up a window it shouldn't have. So it's going to take me a minute to shut this bad boy down. But give me a second here. I'm trying. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you.